your first thoughts when you were invited and when you heard about the Black Man series?
Well, first of all, I thought it was like a bunch of men coming together and speaking to other men about, the constant inhumane things that are happening in our country. And I think it's something that men will need to address all the time, because it's really hard for them to find their identity in this space. So most of the time they use ill-mannered behavior in order for them to display their confusion, and it needs to be addressed amongst us.
Yeah. And just thinking about where you are now, who you are, how does it feel currently to be a Black man in South Africa?
What a time to be alive. I've always wanted to say that shit. But it's interesting. It's like, it's one of those roles where you could either be a part of the healing of in our country, or you could be a part of the problem. It's like it's a decision on where you want to stand. A lot of the times, a lot of the things need to be addressed. And I think after we've removed male privilege, I think then men can get to engage their issues correctly. Because right now, I think how they choose to engage with their issues is still without the acknowledgement of their privilege and where they stand first. And then from there, they'll be able to talk about their real issues about, the emotional abuse that they probably get in relationships, the fact that their sexuality is something that they need to address correctly. Things like that will come with removing the idea of less aggression and more discussions. Yeah.
What are some of the pressures that you personally face as a man?
What are the pressures? I mean, I think I would rather speak on social pressures, because I think that is largely what attributes to a lot of men's behaviors. I mean, I think luckily, because I was an artist, I didn't have to live within the norms of what people think is deemed to be normal, or deemed to be, oh, that's gay. You know what I mean? Like, I've prided myself in always trying to find my own true definition of what makes me happy first, and what makes me sad, because both ends need to be emotions that I need to deal with. I can't just strive to be happy and not understand what sadness can do to me. So I redefine what happiness is. I'm now in the process of redefining what sadness is to me and what I can endure as an individual. And then, but through my journey of trying to find out what makes me happy, relationships and how you relate to people come about. So being in a position of asking a woman out on a date, and then she brings 4 of her friends, is a type of pressures that some men you have to deal with, and if you don't put out as a male, then you're now deemed as like, we're rabishi, you know what I mean? Like, so these are the type of pressures, or if I don't want to sleep with a woman right now, why? Because I'm gay, you know what I mean? Like, or I don't want you right now. Most of the time, it's type of pressures that if we had to flip it, it would have been a weird different thing. Because I mean, if you had to pay for my Uber for some and I don't give you no afterwards, what happens then? I mean, I actually posed that up on a friend of mine's group. I said to her, because we were talking about like, would you ever pay for and she was like, nah, she'll never pay for no she don't pay for whatever. And I said, what happens if you had to get the dude an Uber, whatever, and he decides to come to the house and then not put out? And then her other friends answered and said, I'll make him walk home so he can think about what he did on the way going back. It made me think about like all these moments where this guy throws up a 4,000 Rand bill and thinking that this would make her happy enough for her to think of him being a man to be with, you know. I just think that where the confusion lies is that key moment of addressing things openly. You shouldn't be giving something with an expectation, but we live in an economical tight place. I mean, petrol's high. I don't want to drive all the way there if there's no real certain gains. But also understanding that you don't put out on the first night as well is an old relationship tool, which was such an amazing thing. Back in the day when I used to go on dates, and we'd literally pretend like we're going out. But at the end of the night, I'm not sleeping with you until we decide that actually I want to hang out with you a little bit further. Things have changed in our social spheres, but it is no excuse for you to address it barbarically. You know, you can always address it in certain ways, putting out certain contracts and conversations up front. And if the woman isn't of quality, then she's not worth your conversation. Just as much as if the guy is not of quality, he's not worth your time, you know what I mean, to engage with. So some of the pressures that I had to go through is unpacking all of that first and going, look, what is the ideal scenario that I would like to be happy in? And it is one where largely I'm most of the time being considered maybe gay, you know. They're like, this guy, he must be gay. You know what I mean? They must be. But look, I mean, sexuality shouldn't come into to play with us. I mean, I just finished a series called Gender Must Fall, where we address gender roles, you know, where I address gender roles in this body of work, and what is deemed, where the social pressures of what is right and wrong within that space. Because a lot of us think that we're African by maintaining these gender roles, yet it's not African to see somebody above you. I think a large part of my upbringing on how I saw men treat women was based on the fact that they were getting served. I mean, I would see a woman that finished her doctorate serving a man that is an alcoholic, who's an alcoholic, an uncle of a friend, you know, an uncle that can't even support his own family, but yet he gets served like a king, you know. So it's a lot of these like weird things that we hide behind as maintaining our culture, but it's a culture that's not worth holding on to.
What are some of your insecurities, if you had any? You can interpret this in any way.
My current ones, I mean, my insecurities I'm faced with now is my ability to be a father to a son, and to a daughter, and what my father told me the most incredible thing after being beaten for many years by him, and when he sees me raising my son, he said to me that you shouldn't use aggression to deal with problems in raising your children. And I was like so confused. I was like, why would you say that? And he said it was because then you would find that he would want to address problems with aggression. Every time something comes up, he would want to be first to work himself up in order for him to deal with it. And I find myself doing that quite a lot because I grew up in quite an aggressive household. But I think that taught my father on how the next time to raise a son would be, because he only raised daughters after that. So those are some of my insecurities, is just to make sure that within the boundaries of my society, am I an upstanding member of my society, which is very important, because first I am my community and then I am me, you know. I believe in that. As much as I find myself within my community, but to maintain maintain how my family should grow, I want to maintain my position within that space. As much as I'm a disruptor in my work, I disrupt everything, but there's certain things that I still want to maintain, and it's the morality of my society.
How would you describe your relationship with your father?
It's great. I was raised by my father. The only person that could actually deal with me was my father. I think at that in a period of time. Obviously, my mom is an amazing, incredible mother. You know, I think I fight more with my mom's expectations of who I am than what my father just allowed me to be, because he was also a photographer, so it was easy for him to understand my obsessions of not trying to sleep at night. And because, you know, 9 to 5 people don't understand why you're up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Why you must be on something at this time. Yeah, either we must slaughter a black chicken for you. So yeah, so growing up, I mean, that my father was great with me. I mean, I think what he did was he reminded me he was always there, which was a great experience. I mean, I have the coolest relationship with my father. I'm the most open. I mean, he hates the drinking and smoking. I mean, recently they've just banned, they lifted the ban on ganja.
Yeah.
So obviously going back home, I was like, yo, Dad, I found out my dad was selling weed later on in life. But I addressed him like now recently, actually. I think it was a month ago. I went back to Cape Town. I was like, yo, so now that ganja is legal, you know, he's like, yeah, you can smoke it there. Not around me. My dad doesn't smoke or drink, and he was surrounded by people who drank and smoke. I mean, his leisure time in the week is sitting at a shebeen and listening to stories. So he's cool. I think my son is going to be very privileged to know that I'm going to constantly also be there. Also, all my kids and my daughter, they're going to be very. I'm a hands-on father, because I learned from how my father was with me. Even in a divorced environment, he was still there. You know, I've seen a lot of guys grow up without their fathers, and still be very great examples for their kids. So there's no excuses for somebody without anything to become really great. I looked at those as an examples of maintaining my morality as well, you know.
Yeah.
And also growing up with a very powerful sister, that she was the person that actually made me realize that I had male privilege, because I didn't understand it for many years. Many years I was like, I love my mom, I love my sister, there's no way, but I was saying sex is shit, you know, constantly, and I just didn't realize what I was saying. You know, I was still perpetuating catcalling, you know. In my mind, I was actually just complimenting your dress code, but I didn't realize that it's constant jail, you know, and that's because that's the only time we think about sex or getting raped or like being violated, you know, whereas just your everyday life is like that. And then what I did with my body of work and I try and delve into spaces like that to also pull out pieces of breaking that constant feeling. I mean, I was living I just went to Israel, but it's Palestine. I call it Palestine, but it's Israel, where people, your freedom, your thought on what freedom is constantly completely taken away from you there. It's inhumane to live in that space. I mean, I kissed the ground in OR Tambo when I came back, because I didn't understand how people can live like that, and yet our females in our country are living like that constantly, you know.
Yeah, scary. And can you touch more about how your sister kind of revealed certain things to you about your privilege?
Just by calling me trash. You know what I mean? Like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? And then I'll try and defend myself by saying, no, you know, I'm still, no, I love my mom. There's no way. I love my sister. How can you say that, you know? But I sounded, now that I listen to myself and I listen to what now that I hear myself now versus what I sounded like when I was younger, I liken it to how a white person is trying to convince you that he's not racist, but say some racist shit, and the more, and yeah, dude, and like you're not those blacks are different from you because you're the black that is around me. Like that is exactly how I try and explain it to fellow friends and brothers of mine. It's exactly that. If you try and imagine yourself explaining to a white man that you're saying racist things. You might even have a black girlfriend, but you could still say racist, or a boyfriend, but you can still be racist. Yeah.
What are your thoughts and opinions about black women in general?
That I think they must just keep on keeping on, keep on going. Like I think their struggle. I mean, the struggle is not over at all yet. I think a part of emancipation and constant, because you get the freedom like what we're faced with now. We have freedom, but now we need economical freedom. Like our struggle is not really over yet. As a nation, as an African nation, and I still feel like even into its subcultures within that, from LGBT rights to female rights to male rights is also a big thing that still needs to be put on the back burner until we get these rights completely out, because unfortunately we've been it's unfortunate that we've all been displaced, but right now we need to create a society where everybody is celebrated, for their individualism, not for the roles that they played or the fact that they were born into but for individually we need to learn that we all are our own identity. We are not our gender. Just because I have a penis doesn't mean that I have more or less. You know what I mean? Like more than anything, our personality and the fact that I'm willing to understand myself and where I'm positioned within my surroundings is what's important for everyone. If we can conscientize ourselves to be more conscious, then I think we find ourselves kind of finding what that middle ground is, because a lot of the rhetoric before was the same rhetoric that caused wars. The segregation and the mindsets are the same ideas of that created wars and thinking this was a functional society, but it wasn't, because it excluded a lot of people, and because of that, the functionality is no longer exists. We can't base it on its progression. Now it will be progressive if we are all inclusive.
Yeah, we definitely need to just be more cognizant of our language, of like the kind of stories that we tell, and inclusivity, and not like sidelining people and sort of labeling people.
But when I was in Kinshasa, I was stuck there for 2 months. I got catfished by some woman. She wanted me to come and take photos, and then when I got to Congo, then she said I needed to sleep with her, and I said I didn't want to sleep with her. She chucked me out, and I was stranded for a while. It took another agency to actually come and rescue me. I even turned Muslim. I was Christian, turned Muslim, but anyway, and in my time there, I looked at all the statues that they had there, and a lot of our statues, all we ever doing is just like talking about our past, like if it's renaming anything, we're renaming it now from what was a struggle. We're not renaming something for a future and our society, the things that we want to hold on to in our society, and what statues should actually exist for our future kids. Not ones. The thing is, the problem is we've already got a library, we've got our history, but what we're not doing is we're not getting out of our history, and now we're reliving this constantly, and we're constantly reminding ourselves that we're in this struggle because we're not moving forward from it, you know.
Yeah. Can you complete the sentence? A man has to be.
A man has to be. A man has to be himself first before he becomes anything else. You know, yeah, he needs to understand himself. He mustn't base his decisions on other people, on what people expect of him. You can't base his happiness on other people's happiness. Can't base what would make other people sad that must be his sadness. A man must be himself first before he can be anyone else.